All right, this is the Racin-Teach, and here we are with some X-Tech cable activated hydraulic brakes. Now, why do I have these? Well, these just came in today, and these are going on to the Velotric e-bike. These are the recommended brakes to replace the mechanicals. So how this guy works, basically cable goes through here, pulls on this guy here, brakes get activated. Now, if you look through here, it comes with international standard mounts, and it also can go to flat mounts. So when we go ahead and install these, we're going to be using that flat mount. We're going to get rid of this adapter right here, and then we're going to mount these up to the bike. Hopefully, they will just mount into the existing adapters and we'll be good. We do have to worry about the height, the distance from the mounting point to where the pads sit, because we want to make sure we're definitely hitting the rotor in the right spot. So we have to really check the depth and the height to make sure we're getting great contact. Anyways, they look like a pretty nice little brake system. I have no idea what to do with brake pads yet, but we'll figure that out when and if the time comes. So just take the pad out and go and search, and hopefully be able to find them in a bike shop. Otherwise, possibly you have to order them. Anyways, here we go. We're ready to go try to get these on the bike now. Okay, so here we are. Now I'm actually going to just video the front brake. I've already done the rear, just to make sure everything is pretty much straightforward. So here we go, and pardon this, I am doing this hands-on. So to remove these brakes, remember everything is cable activated. Now, if you decide to keep these brakes and make them work, your adjustment is this right here, this span of cable pull. How these brakes work is you pull the cable and these come up. The brake pads are on a cam, so the brake pads will just push in. If you look very carefully, you'll see that when you squeeze these, this arm actually turns in and closes this gap up. That's how the mechanicals work. So it's working off of leverage. They do okay, but they really are at the mercy of the lever. And I can get all technical about it. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to replace this. So I've already removed the little aluminum cable end right there. I just pull them straight off with a pair of pliers. These are my cable puller pliers. I usually take them off with that. If you want, you can also cut them. These are special cable cutters for bicycle cables. And really the only tool you need to do this entire job besides the pliers or the cutters is a 5mm Allen wrench. It's pretty straightforward. What I'm going to do right here is I'm going to loosen this pinch bolt. This is the pinch bolt that tightens your cable up. Now, be very careful about these things. Let's say you decide to keep these and you're making adjustments and you want to tighten up your brakes. You loosen this guy right here, and you notice when I loosen it, it's going to actually pull away. You see that? It's spring loaded. Okay, this is what returns back. See that? Okay, so usually what I do is I set it to about there. You know, I set it to where the brake pads just barely touch. Right there, that's where the pads touch the rotor. Back it off a tiny bit. They're free. That creates the play so that the rotors don't rub inside of the caliper, okay? If I did that right now, they're completely free. So this is what I'm doing. I'm replacing this, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this all the way out. Now, if you don't want to cut the little piece off, which is fine, most people don't want to cut anything, just loosen this all the way, and you'll be able to just remove this from this, because this piece right here, this is a cable clamp system, and you just loosen this bolt all the way like so. And actually, I'll just go ahead and do that right now. It's got some really cool safeties built into it. It's kind of amazing what they do, because if this bolt were to loosen, it's actually got a mechanism in the washer here so that the bolt doesn't just fall out. So I actually have to get in here with the wrench and really loosen it to get this thing out of here. Okay, so I've got the washer kind of square, so I can do it by can. But basically, if I do decide to take that off, you can just pull this out and done. And then now, if you decide you want to leave the little chrome thing, you just take the nut off completely. All right. Now that this is off, I'll take the rubber cap off. You can or cannot use it. It's up to you. Sometimes I like to reuse those these rubber things, so that I kind of keep some of the moisture out of this cable. So from here, basically what I do is just pull up on the cable, pull it out of the barrel. This is called a barrel adjuster. This is another way to adjust your brakes, by the way. So if your brakes are rubbing, I would actually turn this in or clockwise if it'll go in. Now in this case, mine's all the way in, so it's not going to turn. That may loosen these enough just so that they don't rub on the rotor. Okay, you'll hear that ting, ting, ting when you're riding. Anyway, so that's that. 5mm here, back in action again. So now what I do is I'm going to remove this. Now, I spoke earlier about adapters. This is the fork mount, okay? This is a post mount fork. That's what they call it, because it's in the shape of a post. Do not take this bolt off right here. The one that goes to the fork. This adapter, this is an adapter right here that they've used to get the clearance here for this, because the size of this rotor is so large. These adapters allow you to put larger brake rotors on. So if this was like a class 3 bike that was doing like 27 miles per hour or something like that, I would actually put a larger rotor on this. And if you want to find out what size rotor you have, you can actually look on the rotor itself. And for those people who are going, what the hell's a rotor? What's a rotor? That's this disc brake right here. This piece, okay? And oh, a couple other notes about that. If you want your brakes to squeal and let everybody know you're coming, then I highly recommend making sure to touch that with your dirty fingers. Matter of fact, don't touch the rotor at all if you can avoid it. The oils from your skin can actually contaminate the rotor, as well as dirt and oil and anything else. And that's how you get those wonderful howling brakes as you're going down a long hill. If it's a little bit of oil or dirt or whatever it is, sometimes on a nice long downhill run, you get it hot enough, it'll burn it right off. And then no more squeaky squeakies. If you have quite a bit of contaminant, I guarantee you right now, just burn the brake pads. You will never get them clean. I don't care what cleaner they tell you to do. Some people say wash them with Dawn detergent, get some brake degreaser, whatever you want to do. And I'll tell you right now, done it all, been there, done that, tried it. Like I said, I've got a lot of years of playing with bicycles and bicycle parts. And I will tell you right now, just buy new pads. And if your rotor's in good shape, just wipe your rotor down with alcohol, let it dry, don't touch it with your skin. Anyways, in all that conversation, guess what just came off? There you go. This is it. This is your mechanical brake. This is it. And these things I've got just a few miles in, just barely breaking in the brake pads. Now, these bolts are very special. Don't lose these. These are the stock ones that came with this. If I were changing to another brand of brake that was not specific to this, and pardon my dirty rug in my garage, because it's a garage. And I'm about to put this down here and hopefully keep it so you can actually see what I'm doing here. Oh, nope, phone's gonna fall. What I'm doing now is, and like I said, pardon my arm here, I need to remove this caliper from the adapters that came with it. Now what I usually do is I check the height of these bolts. So if you notice, they're pretty darn close, right? So I'm going to go ahead and leave the stock bolts with the stock caliper And I'm gonna go ahead and use the ones that came with these brakes, okay? 2 reasons. Number one, it's got this blue stuff that's on there. That's called thread lock, Loctite. And I don't want these bolts to go anywhere, so I'm gonna thread lock them on. I would put it on anyways. All right, so now, here we go. Did I grab the right one? Oh, duh. Never mind, hold on. I was like, that's strange, those bolts are the same. All right, I grabbed the wrong one. Here's the new one. See what happens? This is what happens. I start getting into these videos. So I'm gonna remove these bolts. And yes, that's my sandal there. Come on, I'm a YouTuber. I'm doing this one-handed. Yeah, and I'm actually, I have a bike stand. I have everything I need to do this job correctly, and the bolts are the same. So I'll just use these bolts. I have a professional bike rack. I have a stand. I have everything, but half of you are not going to be doing that. So I might as well do it the way you're going to be doing it, right? So here we go. So I'm going to hold on for a second there. I got to break that loose. And there we go. Bolts off. Mind you, you're going to be doing this with 2 hands. You're not going to be doing it with a phone in your hand. There we go, bolts off. So there we go. Now I have my caliper here. So this thing came with this spacer in there. That spacer is going to be very useful. It's actually the width of a brake rotor. So they put that in there to keep these things from expanding shut. Because once these expand shut, it's really hard to get them open again. So once you pull this, do not activate that arm until it's on the bike, okay? So here we go. I'm gonna pull this, and that's out now. So now you can see there's space there. See the pistons in there, brake pads, everything's there. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is take this guy, and it's going to sit. I'm going to fit it into, just like that. Pretty much just like this. It's gonna go like so. The cable is going to come into this right here and then through this anchor point down here, and then we're all set and good to go. Now I talked earlier about making sure the brake pads actually hit the rotor, and this is very important with these spacers to make sure that these heights are very similar. And in this case here, this red dot is where the pistons are, and it's about centered over the rotor. Like this distance to the rotor here is good, that distance there. So it's most of the pad is making contact, so I would go ahead and be fine with this for this bike. In all honesty, and minus the speed you're going down the street right now, I would actually get a slightly shorter one. I like having more brake pad on the rotor, but this will actually do the job just fine. So I've got to do something tricky here. So I'm going to put that back down. I'm going to put a bolt in place. And there we go. So I'm going to have a bolt in there. And then, like I said, I'm doing this one hand so you can check it out. So I'm actually got the bolt started. I start at the top. And now it gets kind of hard to turn, okay? Now be careful. We're dealing with aluminum and steel. So you can easily cross thread this. If you notice, I'm doing everything by hand first. Okay. I get a couple threads in. I want to make sure it's going in straight. So as long as I can get my hands in there to do it, or very light pressure on a tool. Okay, so in this case here, it's getting tight where the thread locker is. You see that? It's already at the thread locker. So that's where it should start tightening up. Okay, now like I said, the other option is to use the existing bolts that were in there because they've already gone through, but then you kind of lose that thread lock. So, but as long as they turn fairly freely, you're doing okay. Now you notice here it's actually getting very tight. Okay, so what I usually do here is if you notice these, this, let me see if I can get it up here. It's got a ball end, all right? These are not good for tightening things down. So I'm going to, pardon my mess, while I go grab what I need to grab. There's my hand. And there it is right there. That's what happens. Sorry, I have about 5 projects going right now. And I had a yard sale, and that will usually give me all kinds of garbage I need to put away. They didn't sell. There we go. There's my Allen wrench, and I'm going to start turning this in. It's going in firmly just because the Loctite is there. Now I'm going to go right till it gets snug, back it out. And I'll show you why in a minute. So same thing with the bottom one. It's going in. It's getting snug. The bottom one's going to get a little snug. There's a little more angle to this guy. Okay, now it's snug. I'm going to back it out. Now, why did I back it out? Because I want this to move. Okay. For right now. Cable here. Someone had mentioned earlier that they were having issues with the cable. Not enough cable. Plenty of cable for these brakes. All right. So now carefully, you're going to thread this into this barrel adjuster. Now that wasn't very careful now, was it? I have to be super careful, pardon the anti-focus here, because I actually frayed the end. You see that? So what I do is take my rusty trusty cutters here, and I'm going to go right above the fray, cut that, and now I have a nice clean cut, and now that should go right through and not even an issue. Now I'm going to be very careful not to fray it again. I have plenty of cable though, so I'm not really worried about it. And I told you on these rubber things, you can use them or not. So I'm actually I'm going to put this back in here. Wide end goes up here to the threaded part. Kind of just goes right in like that. Okay. Now, break this adjuster loose. See how far I can loosen that? This forks right here, there's forks on this side, that's what actually locks this cable in place. So I can push this back up, and I can just put those forks back where they were. And I think I'm gonna have to just do a little old school here because I'm trying to do a couple things here. There we go. Sorry, lost focus for a minute there. All right, so what I did is I backed this out to like the last parts of the thread, and I was just able to slide the cable in from the other side, okay? So there we go. All right, so now, the moment of truth. For the most part, make sure this piece is sitting inside like that fully, and this is where these come in. So I could take these, clamp these in here like so, and I can activate the brake. That's full lock, so I'm going to back it down to probably right about there, and then I'm going to lock it down. Okay, so the cool thing is, make sure the rubber piece is not pinched in there as well. I'll move that up a bit, and I don't like that angle right there, so give me 1 second here to make sure that that's going right. I want to make sure that these pieces are where they're supposed to be. Okay. I'm actually using my phone because I don't have my glasses on. All right, so make sure these little forks are squared, and the cable, there's a little notch where this cable needs to slide into. So make sure it's in that. Okay, and then just tighten her up. Don't over tighten, this will break and snap. So now here we go, I pull my smooth as silk. Look at that. Now, why did I keep these loose? Remember, this is loose, right? Okay, so here's what I do for the adjustment. I will pull the lever, and what that does is both pistons will come out. And then if I had a third hand, I would actually tighten these bolts down. while I'm pressing on the brake lever. Okay. So do that and tighten the bolts at the same time. And if the piston and everything are working right on the brakes, you'll lift the wheel, spin it, and it should clear, and you shouldn't hear any ting, 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 ting. All right. So there you go. Sorry for the long video, but basically hydraulic brakes are now installed on my Velotric. That's it. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, and make sure to follow me on the Racin-Teach, aka also known as Bike Sport Radio. I am now the Racin-Teach. I've bring in everything e-bike, bicycle, and EV to you. Take care, everybody, and thanks for following along.